Some stories happened in silence, and almost no one survived to tell them.
German soldiers opened my lipstick dozens of times. If they had turned the base just 1 centimeter further, I would have been executed in the street. Many decades have passed, and I still wake up with trembling hands, not from old age. Or at least, not only from old age. There is a box at the back of my wardrobe that I never throw away and never open. I go months without thinking about it, sometimes years, and then a day comes, without warning, without any clear reason, when I get up in the morning, look at the wardrobe, and know that I need to open it. Today is one of those days. The box is small, dark wood, no ornaments, no name. It fits in both hands. I brought it from Paris in '45, inside a suitcase that barely closed, along with 2 changes of clothes and a photograph I lost along the way. When I open the lid, there is a smell I cannot describe. Old wood, dust, and something else. Something that has no name but takes me immediately back to those streets. That cold, that fear that lived permanently in my chest. Inside the box there are 2 objects. A lipstick, deep red, worn, the color nearly gone, and a small notebook with a black cover with an elastic band around it that I have never shown to anyone. I pick up the lipstick with both hands. 47 lives saved, 12 condemned. I never knew for certain if it was a fair trade. People ask me sometimes why I keep it, why I didn't throw it away decades ago, why I didn't bury it along with everything I wanted to forget. I don't know how to answer. I think some things need a witness, and if I throw it away, no one is left, so it stays. Today I am going to tell you everything, not because I want to, but because someone needs to know that this happened. Close your eyes for a moment. Paris, July 1942. I was young, and I thought it would last 1 more year at most. Everyone thought that. The occupation had begun in '40, and we kept telling ourselves it would end soon. That the Allies would come, that this could not be permanent. 2 years later, the Germans were still in the streets, still searching bags, still arresting people in the middle of the night. And we had learned to pretend it was normal. I worked in a small cafe in the center of the city. I arrived before dawn, opened the shutters, set the chairs in place, lit the stove. It was a good routine. Simple. It smelled of coffee and bread, and sometimes, when the morning started slowly, I almost managed to pretend the world was fine. Before turning on the lights in the dining room, I would stop at the mirror behind the counter. I would take the lipstick from my bag, always the same one, deep red, which I kept with exaggerated care because there was no way to buy another, and apply it slowly. I would look at my own reflection for a long moment. It wasn't vanity. It was defiance. There was something in that gesture that told me, you still exist. They haven't taken this from you. Not yet. My friends would arrive after, and for an hour the cafe became something else. Laughter, stories, a bottle of wine that someone always managed to find from somewhere. One morning someone knocked over a glass, and the red wine spread across the wooden counter, and no one rushed to clean it. We just stood there watching the red spread slowly and laughing, without knowing why. We were young. We needed moments like that to endure the rest. I had a dream in those days. When the war is over, I used to say, I am going to open my own shop. Only beautiful things. Imported perfumes, lipsticks, creams. A place that smelled good and had warm light, and where people could come in and forget for 5 minutes that the world was falling apart. My friends laughed, but it was the kind of laugh that means I want to believe that too. That was when he appeared. He always came around midday. He sat at the same table at the back, always alone, always in the same chair with his back to the wall. He ordered coffee, lit a cigarette, opened the newspaper. He spoke to no one. 30 years old, perhaps. Elegant without looking wealthy. The suit was good but worn, the shoes well kept but old. He had a quiet way about him that drew attention precisely because it seemed rehearsed, like someone who had learned not to be noticed but hadn't quite become invisible yet. I noticed him in the first week. I served his coffee without looking at him. He didn't look at me, but I noticed him. I didn't know yet that this man was going to destroy and save my life at the same time. It was a few weeks before he spoke to me, and even then it wasn't exactly speaking. One day when I went to clear the table after he had left, I found a folded note under the saucer. I looked around. The cafe was empty. He had already gone. I went to the bathroom, locked the door, opened the paper. 3 words, written by hand in small, careful letters. "Do you trust me?" I stared at that for a long time. In 42, in occupied Paris, receiving a note like that from a stranger could mean anything. It could be a trap. It could be the Gestapo. It could be madness. But there was something in that handwriting, something calm, almost sad, that didn't feel like a threat. I picked up the pencil I used to write orders, turned the paper over, wrote, "Yes." I left it on his table the next day, under the empty saucer, without looking at him when I served the coffee. He said nothing, but when I went to clear the table afterward, the paper had disappeared. The following week, he asked me a small favor. Carry a folded note to the seamstress on Rue Claire, a woman called Madame Fontaine, and deliver it personally, not leave it with anyone else. Simple. Innocent. I did it. Then there was a code for the pharmacist, a phrase I had to say out loud when I entered, as if I were asking for some ordinary medicine. The pharmacist would listen, nod, and hand me a small package that I would carry back without opening. Then came names. Small lists, written in tiny letters on very thin paper. I didn't know what they meant. He told me it was better that way. The less I knew, the safer I would be. I believed him. I shouldn't have believed him so quickly, but I did. The first time they searched me was on a Tuesday afternoon. A checkpoint. German soldiers blocking the sidewalk, asking for documents, opening bags. I had a note hidden inside my brassiere, and a name memorized that I was not to repeat to anyone. The soldier approached. I silently apologized to God, to my mother, to everyone, and smiled. The practiced smile of someone with nothing to hide. He looked at me for a second, waved me through. I turned the corner and nearly vomited in the gutter. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. When I tried to light a cigarette, I dropped the match twice. That night, I heard that a man had disappeared from the neighborhood. He had a family. He worked at a warehouse near the river. He wasn't a resistance member. He was just someone in the wrong place at the wrong time. 3 days later, I opened the compartment of my lipstick for a new delivery. His name was there. I had carried his death sentence without knowing it. I sat on the bathroom floor for a length of time I cannot measure. I didn't cry. I couldn't cry. I just kept staring at the lipstick in my hand and thinking, "You didn't know. You didn't know." But knowing or not knowing doesn't change what happened. That was the first thing the war taught me. A few weeks later, he called me to a room above a bookshop on Rue de Rivoli. I climbed a narrow staircase that smelled of damp and old paper. I knocked 3 times as he had told me. The door opened. He had his back to me when I entered, looking out the window at the street below. When he turned, he looked different from the man in the cafe. Older, heavier, as if the distance between one version and the other were years and not weeks. There was a half-empty bottle on the table. He didn't offer any. Didn't explain. He only said, "I need you for something more important. But first you need to understand what's at stake." He placed a red lipstick on the table, almost identical to mine. I picked it up. It felt normal. Same weight, same size. He moved closer and showed me. He turned the base gently, at an angle that wasn't the usual one, and a small compartment opened at the bottom. Enough space for a tiny piece of paper, folded in 4. "Every message that goes in here," he said, "can save 5 people, or kill them. It depends on how it arrives and who receives it." I looked at that small space and thought, this is how an entire life fits. In a tiny piece of paper inside a lipstick that no one looks at twice. He trained me for days. We practiced in alleyways, in markets, in pharmacies. A man played the role of German soldier. He would approach, ask for documents, search the bag. He would take the lipstick, open it, turn it between his fingers. One time, the soldier opened the lipstick from the wrong end. He examined it for a long second, closed it, returned it. There were 3 names of resistance members inside that compartment. 1 centimeter more, and he would have found everything. I learned to control my face that day, to keep my breathing steady, to smile at exactly the right moment, not too quickly, not too slowly, to let my eyes look mildly bored, like someone with nothing to fear because they have nothing to hide. Inside, I learned to pray in silence, without moving. My lips. Every time a soldier held my lipstick, there were names I didn't know. Lives I couldn't tell if I was saving or condemning. There was no way to know. I just kept walking, delivering, returning, and hoping that the next day the world would still be standing. I stopped sleeping properly around that time. Not all at once. It happened gradually. First, it was only the dreams. Then it was the entire night, lying with my eyes open, listening to the city and trying to tell the difference between ordinary sounds and footsteps on the stairs. It was never footsteps on the stairs. But fear doesn't need a reason to exist. It just exists. The months passed and the deliveries accumulated, and I learned to live inside that as if it were a normal life. I woke up, had coffee, went to work, smiled at customers. Sometimes I carried the names of people who might die because of what I had in my bag. I went home, slept badly, woke up, repeated. But there were different nights. One of them came after a delivery that went well. Signal confirmed, message received, no checkpoint on the way. I was walking home through an alley I knew by heart when I heard music. Piano, coming from a basement, slowly, hidden, the way someone plays to remember they still know how. I stopped on the sidewalk, listened. He appeared beside me. He had also stopped. He was still holding the cigarette in his hand. It had gone out minutes ago, but he hadn't noticed. We both stood there listening to that invisible piano in the middle of that occupied, silent Paris. He looked at me. I looked at him. For a moment, neither of us was at war. That was the only moment I remembered I was young, that I should have been thinking about other things, that there was an entire world beyond those streets. But the following week brought something else. Marie-Claire was walking down Rue Le Pic on an ordinary morning when she stopped in front of old Moreau's cobbler shop. The door was ajar, not with a sign, not with a padlock, just ajar, as if someone had left in a hurry and had no time to close it. Inside you could see an overturned chair on the floor, a pair of shoes half finished on the workbench, the sole still without its heel. On the sidewalk, a small wooden toy cart, a child's toy, that no one had come back for. I stood looking for a second. I asked nothing. I couldn't ask. I knew I must not. I stopped walking down that street. That was when the paranoia truly began. Not the fear of soldiers. That I already knew. I had learned to manage. This was something else. It was the voice inside my head that kept asking, "Was it you? That delivery that went wrong last week? Was it your message? That name you carried the month before? Did you know what was going to happen?" I didn't know. But not knowing didn't silence the question. One night, hidden in a basement while rain fell outside, I finally asked, the 12 people who disappeared in the last few months, was it because of messages I carried? He stayed silent for a long time. "It's not that simple," he said. I raised my voice. Not much, we couldn't make noise, but enough for him to feel it. Then simplify it. How many people died because of what I was carrying? He looked away, and that was worse than any answer. I regretted raising my voice immediately. Not because I was wrong. I was right. I had every right. But because I saw in his face that he was carrying it too. I just didn't know yet what form it took. The trust didn't break that night. It cracked. It's different. Cracked glass still holds the weight, but you know that next time it might not. I started following him. It wasn't a plan. It was the paranoia moving my feet without asking permission. I stayed a few meters behind on the other side of the street, hat pulled low. He never noticed. Or if he did, he said nothing. The third time I followed him, he entered a building I didn't recognize, on a street that was not on the way to anywhere he had ever mentioned. I waited on the other side. A siren swept past me, red light washing across the building facades. And I didn't move. When he came out, there was a man with him. Uniform, posture. The kind of silence that exists between someone with power and someone who obeys out of fear. My first thought was, traitor. My second thought was, what if he's not? I went back the following days, watched. On one afternoon, the first floor window was half open, and the wind carried fragments of a conversation. "My sister is under threat. If I don't cooperate, you will kill her." I moved away slowly, back against the cold wall. I stood there for a length of time I cannot measure, listening to the street around me and trying to reorganize everything I thought I knew. He wasn't a traitor. He was a broken man, trying to save someone while destroying others. War is good at that, taking ordinary people and turning them into instruments of things they would never choose. He tried to be kind to me. He made bad jokes in moments of tension, brought bread when I forgot to eat, always walked with me when I was leaving late. I understood now where that kindness came from. It was guilt, dressed as care. I confronted him that night, in whispers, the way everything was done in those days. "I know about your sister." Long silence. He lit a cigarette, his hands unsteady, the lighter clicking 3 times before catching. "I try to prevent the worst consequences," he said. "But I don't always manage. How many times have you failed?" He didn't answer. I already knew. He placed his hand on my face very gently, the way someone holds something that might break. I didn't pull away, but I didn't move closer either. That touch was a goodbye that neither of us knew we were giving. We kept working together. What else was there to do? The war doesn't stop while you process your feelings. You keep going. You deliver the message. You go home. You try not to think. Only the crack was there. And cracks grow. June of 1944 arrived with a different smell. I can't explain it any other way. It was the same Paris, the same streets, the same soldiers on the corners. But there was something in the air, a different tension, an expectation that everyone carried without speaking. The Germans were more nervous. We were more hopeful. And hope in wartime is a dangerous thing because it makes you careless. Liberation was coming. Everyone could feel it. It was like the silence before a storm. you know will save you, and at the same time destroy everything you built to survive, until it arrived. He met me at the cafe one morning in June. He sat at the table at the back as always, ordered coffee as always. But when I passed to clear the cup, he spoke quietly, without looking at me. This message is different from the others, much more important, and much more dangerous. If you don't want to do it, I understand. I truly understand. I took the lipstick without hesitating. But this time, something in me pulled back for a second. An old instinct, one I had learned to ignore because if I didn't ignore it, I couldn't do anything. A small voice that said, "Not now. Wait." I ignored it, as always. Only I stayed a few more minutes in the cafe before leaving, without any clear reason. Exhaustion, perhaps. Or the desire to not be that person for one more moment. Just those minutes. Just that coffee, just the ordinary morning that was never really ordinary. I left, made the delivery, went home. 3 days later, I learned the operation had failed. 8 resistance members who should have received warning in time never received it, or received it too late. They were surrounded, captured, executed. I heard the names through the communication channel that night, one by one, in silence. The last name stopped me completely. It was his sister, and it was in that moment I understood. The delay was mine. Those minutes I sat in the cafe, looking out the window for no reason. Those were the minutes that were missing. I will never know for certain, but I have never stopped believing it was true. I looked for him in the days that followed. No one knew where he was. A week later, a woman from the network told me in passing without ceremony. The way you mentioned the weather. Your contact. Word came. Last week. I asked nothing more. I already knew. That night, I opened the lipstick for the first time in months. Not to deliver anything, just to look. The secret compartment that only I knew about. Inside, a small piece of paper, folded carefully. His handwriting. I read it in silence, alone in my room with a candle nearly burned out. I won't repeat everything that was written. But there was one line at the end that has stayed with me ever since. Wear red again for me. And try to be happy. I closed the lipstick, put it at the bottom of a wooden box, and never opened the secret compartment again after that night. Paris was liberated in August. People went into the streets. There were shouts, tears, flags. I went too. I couldn't not go. But I stayed at the edge of the crowd, watching that enormous joy and feeling as though there was glass between me and it. I could see it. I couldn't enter it. I went back to my apartment before nightfall. In the months that followed, I rebuilt what had been my life before. I went back to work at the cafe. I saw my friends again. Paris remade itself slowly. Shops reopening, music returning, the city learning to breathe again. But I had changed in a way that had no name. It wasn't trauma, or at least not only that. It was a new and permanent awareness that choices have weight, that every decision carries consequences you will never be able to fully calculate, that being part of something larger does not protect you from the guilt of being part of something larger. I never wore makeup again after that. My friends asked. I said I didn't feel like it. That was true, but it wasn't the whole truth. The whole truth was that every time I picked up a lipstick, my hand shook in a way I couldn't control. And I didn't want to explain that to anyone. So I stopped. Simple as that. I opened the perfume shop years later, in '53, when there was finally enough money and enough courage. Only I didn't sell lipsticks. I never sold lipsticks. Customers would ask sometimes, and I would say it was an aesthetic choice, that the focus was perfumes and creams. They accepted that. No one needed to know the rest. The black. Notebook stayed in the box alongside the lipstick for decades. I opened it rarely, once a year perhaps, or when someone from the network died and I found out. I would run my eyes over the names. The circled ones, 47. The crossed out ones, 12. I would close it, put it away. It was the only form of tribute I knew how to make. My granddaughter asks sometimes why I'm quiet in a different way from other grandmothers. It's not sadness, she says. It's something else. She's right. It is something else. It is the weight of knowing things that have nowhere to go. It is carrying the names of people I never met and who may have died because of minutes I spent sitting in a cafe in June of 44. There is no cure for that. You learn to live alongside it. Today I opened the box again. I picked up the lipstick. I picked up the notebook. I sat here for a long time holding both of them, remembering every street, every checkpoint, every name, every second in which I needed my face to show nothing. Some people ask me, "Did you save lives?" Yes. Did you lose innocent people? Yes. Was it worth it? I don't answer that one. I never knew the answer. I don't think I ever will. What I know is that those women, the ones who came before me, the ones who did far more than I ever would, the ones who died without being able to tell anyone, deserve to be remembered. And I am still here. So I remember. I put the lipstick back. I put the notebook back. I closed the lid of the box. Sometimes I think surviving was the hardest part.
Marie-Claire Rousseau is a fictional character, but she is made of absolutely real stories of women who served as couriers for the French resistance between 1942 and 1944. Lucie Aubrac was one of the greatest leaders of the French resistance. She risked her life countless times, carrying messages and organizing rescues under Nazi occupation. Nancy Wake became known as the White Mouse by the Gestapo and was one of the most wanted agents in Europe. She used her elegant appearance to cross checkpoints without raising suspicion. Violette Sabo was a British agent of French origin sent into occupied France to coordinate the resistance. She was captured, tortured, and executed at Ravensbrück concentration camp in 1945. She was 23 years old. Noor Inayat Khan was a radio operator in Paris and the last Allied agent to maintain active secret transmissions in the city before being captured. She refused to give any information under torture. She was executed at Dachau. The lipstick tactic is absolutely documented. Real agents used everyday items, makeup, sewing kits, handbags, shoe heels to conceal messages, microfilm, and documents. The core idea was that the enemy rarely questioned the trivially feminine. The moral consequences are recorded in diaries and testimonies from resistance members who describe the permanent guilt of messages that arrived too late, of operations that failed, of names they carried without ever knowing. The liberation of Paris took place in August 1944, after 4 years of German occupation. What this story honors is the emotional reality these women lived, the moral impossibility of being just one link in a chain you cannot control, carrying the weight of lives you never had the chance to know. If you had to carry messages that could save lives but also condemn others, without knowing which it would be, would you do it? Leave your answer in the comments. There is no right answer. These women existed, and the hardest part is that many of them died, never being able to tell anyone what they had done. If you listen to this story until the end, thank you for listening for them. Leave a like if this story stayed with you. Hit the bell every week. There is a new memory the world almost forgot.